Hello and welcome to day two of Hikaru's training match for the candidates against Awonder Liang. I'm Fiona Steil-Anthony. I'm here with Grandmaster John Ludwig Hammer. And Jon Ludwig, this must be the first time in history a game of chess has started ahead of schedule.
Yeah, it is definitely a rarity, but it shows that the players are raring to go. And I have not flipped the board, which I'm sure someone is screaming at me in some of our internal chats. Hikaru is playing very aggressively with the black pieces. It's clear that he wants to have fighting games. He wants to kind of challenge himself, I think, to kind of get that tricky positions with tense calculations, and that may be precisely what is needed to perform his best in 2 weeks.
It is. Sorry, Hammer. I was sidetracked for a second because chat is also already telling us that. Do you remember you talked about the blue round sweep yesterday? I actually saw that after we finished the show, and I shared it in our little Discord, and I was like, "Lol," and Hammer was like, "That's not funny."
I mean, they've made another fake quote, this time from me. And because of how the fake quote is formulated, it looks as though I'm accusing Matthias of cheating. So, yeah, I don't find it very funny, but, Germans, right?
Germans trying to have a sense of humor.
Yes, that was a lost cause the whole way. I'm assuming Luxembourg is pretty, happy to tell jokes at Germans' expense.
Not so, actually, funnily
Oh
enough,
wow.
we have more like German jokes. But anyway, let's get back into the game. We'll have plenty more time to discuss later. Yesterday, the players took a bit of time in the very opening stage, but today they're just rattling out those moves.
Yeah, so let's go back to the start. It was the King Pawn opening from Awonder, just like Hikaru played yesterday. Hikaru goes for the Sicilian defense, the most aggressive way of meeting the King Pawn opening. And we go into the classical Sicilian. Now, to be fair, my grasp of chess history is lacking, so I'm not familiar why it's called the classical Sicilian. I can only assume that this is how the Sicilian was played back in the good old days. And by good old days, I mean, world wars and famine and general, yeah, misery. So Hikaru is bringing it back. It is a very other study chess for a living. So now I know what I aspire to as well. I just got to get so rich
Gotta
from
hurry
doing
up
chess.
though.
I got to get so rich from doing chess commentary that I can just live out my days
Actually,
being a second
actually,
for
question
some
to
of the
you:
top players.
what do you prefer between doing commentary and being a second and playing between those three? If you had to rate them one, two, three.
Um, well, I mean, whatever pays the most.
That's such a sad answer.
Well, it's all chess.
What are you even gonna do with all the freaking money?
It's all chess. So it's not like you have to choose between your passion and
I'm
your.
asking you which you like better. Let's leave money and everything aside. Just in
I
terms.
think playing chess is very stressful.
Yeah.
I think studying chess is um I think that's pretty cool,
Mm-hmm.
but there comes a moment where you've looked at the same line in the Sicilian 15 times and you still cannot crack it, and you're so sick of looking at the same thing over and over and over that you get you get a bit burned out from that. So right now, I feel like I would enjoy doing being a second, being an opening helper a lot because
Mm,
I've been out of the game for so long that I haven't looked at like properly looked at the chess developments the last 10 years. So I would
mm,
still feel like a lot of things are very fresh. But back in 2015, I was a bit burnt out by all these Queen's Gambit declines and the Berlins and the yeah, it took a toll.
mm,
And so chess commentary is definitely the most fun and by far the least stressful.
mm.
So I would these days I would be more open to doing more chess work. The problem is that because I've been out of the game for 10 years, no one would want to hire me.
Have you tried approaching someone and just being
No.
like, because I think I was really, I didn't know that, but speaking of the, so we talked pre-stream about the Gotham tour because that's what I'm doing in Stockholm. I'm coming to host Gotham's tour at the chess party. And we did that tour last year, not the tour, the show, but we did the tour last year. And one of the guests was Niklas Huschenbeet, who is a second or a former second, again, I do not know, of Hikaru. And he talked about how, because I always just assumed when a player wants to work with someone as a second, the player just approaches them, and in my head, that's always how it worked. But Niklas, at that show last year, said that he actually had approached Hikaru at some tournament and was like, "Yo, do you wanna?" I would like to be a second for you. I mean, I don't remember the exact words, but basically, Hushenbeit approached Hikaru, and Hikaru was like, "Okay."
That works?
I was also shocked, so I'm just giving you some ideas here, Hammer.
Well, I mean, if ideas and so on, I mean, I would be like Fabi has like a new second every 3 months. So, I mean, I think if I were to go after something or someone, I would be like, okay, let me do my obligatory 3 months with Fabi because at this point he's cycled through almost all the players there are.
Yeah.
So I can start out my services there and then move on to kind of just dip my
But
toes
I
in
like how you
this.
want to start at the very top, you know?
Well, my only
Just
experience so
Fabi to,
far
get the
is
dust off.
well, the only experience I have so far is the number one in the world. So I feel like I come at a pretty high premium.
But why not Hikaru? I mean, you already have that's a fair point, but Hikaru you already have an obvious connection.
Yeah, this is true.
It would be funny though if you were Fabi's second and commentating on the games here. Oh my god, imagine if Hammer is on Fabi's team for the candidates. Plot twist.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the problem is the part where I'm out of the game and rusty and not having worked much on chess for the past 10 years. I
Mm.
think that is my main concern rather than whether Fabi or Hikaru or Magnus or I don't know, Ali Reza would be interested. Olivesa's father at some point approached me and was like, "Ooh, how's your availability?" But I feel like he probably said that to everyone at some point. Uh,
He was approaching a lot of people about a lot of different things at a
yeah.
certain point in time.
So,
Um,
but it's always nice to be wanted. Yeah. I was telling Olivesa's dad that like, ooh, Olivesa is doing a lot right. I don't think I have much to contribute here. This kid is super good, and he's making good progress. But it was nice, kind of just him saying, "Oh yeah, no, I know who you are."
Yeah, that is, I completely understand that. Hammer, take us back to the game for a second, and let's start with Shaiton's question, who's asking, can we assume that h4 is a move Awonder came up with himself and not a choice from many moves he knows exist?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So what I will say about this h4 move is that the previous consideration that we had, whether white should play this pawn one step forward or two steps forward. I said if you push the pawn two steps, the goal is to kind of be very, very early with blasting through the center of the board and creating an early conflict. So when Awonder plays h4, I feel like this is in the pawn to f3 territory. Because when we spoke about the f3 move, I said the point of this is to then push these pawns up on the king side, presuming that the black king will end up on that side of the board. So I think Awonder has essentially made his decision about the f pawn without moving the f pawn. Because if you're going to go two steps forward, time is of the essence. You have to strike before Hikaru gets his king into safety. So by playing pawn to h4, Awonder is signaling that he is not interested in this immediate break with the pawns crashing through in the center, and that he would rather try to build up his attack by pushing this h pawn up and pawn to f3, creating that protection of white's pawns in the center with a pawn chain is the way he's going to go. And Hikaru plays instantly.
Hikaru hasn't spent any time in this game whatsoever. Yesterday, we
So
talked quite a bit about time management. Do you think that Awonder already needs to start thinking about speeding up, or everything is still? I mean, they have played 10 moves already. No, it's fine, yeah.
yeah, but Hikaru is very clearly signaling that he is in his preparation,
I'm
which
curious,
can
you know,
only
you,
be a
you said
good thing.
at the start of the stream, you said there's no way he will play this in the candidates, but maybe, you know, towards the bottom end of the tournament, if he ever finds himself in a must-win situation with black, or if he feels like, okay, this is a spot where I want to take a bit of a risk, could be an interesting, you know, kind of, well, yesterday we talked about poker, kind of bluff, you know, to play it in this public preparation match and then play it again um, in the candidates.
Yeah,
Unlikely,
but
but I don't think it's impossible.
not impossible, but it feels strange playing it in this test match because players will be aware, oh, Hikaru needs to go for the win. Okay, he's going to play the Sicilian. Okay, what are his most recent Sicilian games? Oh, he played the classical against Awonder. So
Mm.
I don't think it makes sense playing this in the test match if he has any sort of intention of also playing it in the candidates. But like you said,
Mm.
it can be a double ploy that because people would not expect it, that's what he's doing.
Yeah. In the chat, people continue talking about teams. Dubov was definitely a part of Magnus's team. That was confirmed a long time ago. I saw some speculation. We talked about Fabi, right? Some speculation that Levon is on Fabi's team. I don't think that can be because we know that Levon is playing Grenke. And I don't think any player will allow one of their main members of their team to just be like, yeah, you can go and play Granke for a week. Just come back after.
But
Good luck.
on the other hand, Levon is such a scoop. As far as I know, Levon has never helped anyone
Oh,
before.
wow. I
Well,
didn't know
do
that
you
actually.
can you think of anyone like the
No.
Armenian team
Yeah.
and himself?
Yeah.
But for him to kind of play second fiddle to someone else,
Yeah.
I've never heard that of Levon.
And
So
apparently he denied it a week ago anyway, I guess at the American Cup. Yeah, interesting point you're making. I'd never thought of that, but Hans
I
is
what
playing
what
as
I was
well.
gonna say is that Levon would be such a scoop that even just having him for
Mm,
doing practice games during
yeah,
the final training camp would be good enough. You don't need to have him during the
that's
event
true. And I mean
itself.
that might be possible that he's not, a second who's there or who's available the entire time throughout the candidates, but that he's done a bit of looked at chess a bit with Fabi before. The two of them, for those in the chat who don't know, are very, very close friends, and they even neighbors in St. Louis or something. So
I didn't even know
that they were
this.
very good friends.
Yeah,
Levon
this
in
is new to
every
me.
interview is always like my buddy Fabi, my friend, they're very
But
schmoozy.
back in 2017, and I do realize that a decade has gone past since I kind of was in on all the new gossip. But back then, Levon and MVL were
Yeah.
like
That's
closer
also
than
that's still ongoing. We have
okay.
multiple bromances involving
No,
Levon.
but this is
The man
dramatic
has a lot
then.
of love to give.
Yeah, but MVL is losing his spot to Fabi. I didn't know about
He
this.
needs to move to St. Louis pronto.
We need to have more chess gossip on the bromances.
Yeah, but Fabi and Levon is a big one. That's for sure. And yeah, Levon and MVL, that's still ongoing. I'll see what else I can come up with. But yeah, in terms of I don't think that we have any we can always speculate, of course. I'm sure Matthias Blübaum will be helped by some of the German team members. I don't think Vincent will be involved just because he's such a top player himself. But then if you look at the rest of the team, the Swana brothers, maybe Donchenko, Dimitri Collars, I would not be surprised if they were
I
at
can
least a
definitely
couple of them.
attest to the fact that the German team was very cohesive
Mm.
before the rounds during the Grand Swiss in Uzbekistan, which is where Bleebaum did qualify from. Of course, he was helped by stupid Norwegians giving him free pawns in the opening. So I will take some credit for his candidate place by losing horrendously against him in the third round. But yeah, the Svana brothers, the Kolars, Donchenko, Vincent. But I agree with you that Vincent would probably not be involved for the candidates. But all of the Germans they're basically the same age. Also, the guy who's married to the girl, who I drew in the final round. What's his name?
Which
Wagner.
guy? Oh, Dennis Wagner, yeah.
Yeah,
I think Rasmus Fahne, I would say almost definitely is part of the team, and I'm basing that on the fact that he was Matthias second in Tata Steel. I don't think it would make sense to bring someone, to your main preparation tournament and then not have them be part of the team. So I think Rasmus, we can safely assume,
do
is
you
on the
have
team.
more intel from the Vaikanset tournament? I know you're always
Well,
there and always eavesdropping.
I actually Rasmus, I only saw him. He didn't hide completely because he came out on the last night to the closing ceremony. But other than the final night, I only crossed his path once in the corridor of the hotel. I never saw him at the playing hall or anything. No, what else? Well, Jan Smeets was there with Anish. Sindarov, his main coach is actually an international master, and he shares a coach with Bibisara. Have I ever done seconds work? No, I have not. And to me, it would be the worst when asked Hammer earlier about I've never, ever, ever enjoyed looking at chess openings in my life. So you could do a million tiers, and being a second would always be in the bottom tier. I could be like a good, I could be a part of the team of seconds and just be like responsible for good atmosphere, keeping everyone happy. I could see a role for myself on the team, but not
Apple
doing
juice
chess work.
supplier and gossiper, and
Exactly.
intel
You know, it's
officer on
a
the
little
other team.
spy checking
Yeah.
on the opposition. Um, so yeah, what else? Who People are asking about Nordibig. I think Nordibig, it's a bit the same as with Vincent Keimer, a bit the same reasoning. I wouldn't rule out that he's played some games with Javakir, but again, much like Vincent, he is playing Granker as well. So yeah, for Javakir, I mean, when he won the World Cup, he had this really young guy with him, whose name I think he's a GM from Uzbekistan as well, but I wasn't too familiar with him at all.
Do
Which
we
other
know
player?
anything about Wei Yi? The Chinese chess scene
Yeah, me
continues
neither.
to elude us.
He also, I haven't seen Wei. Has he played anything since the World Cup at all? Maybe something in China, but no major events, right?
Did you hear this thing where Wei Yi wrote a
A
poem for Ding
Yes,
during the
the match,
World
right?
Championship match?
Yeah.
Is there a
I mean,
bromance ongoing there? Are we going to see Ding play a
I
part?
was wondering. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I honestly wouldn't rule out that Ding is working with Fei. I think the two are. I think this poem story is confirmed. I think Ding Liren talked about it even in an interview. So yeah, wouldn't be
And
shocked.
what is the Chinese kind of culture towards poetry and so on, that should we be writing poems to our friends?
I feel like it would be nice, right? I remember the first time I read about this poem thing. I thought that's such a sweet gesture. Like it's just because it really shows. I think it really shows that you care about like when it doesn't cost money, but it's just such a sweet little gesture. I think it's probably a cultural thing that it doesn't really happen so much here, but I'm I don't
I
really
guess and you must have understood where this was going. Should we be writing a poem for Hikaru during the
Hikaru.
stream today?
But we're not part of his or maybe surprise him. I'm actually cringing so hard at the thought of this. Imagine you and me, sending Hikaru a little, and we make it as a video montage where we're like, reading out. Oh God. Oh, here's the poem to Dingley Wren. Jaren actually found it.
But we don't know who translated this. So with some consideration for the potential mistranslations, in the quiet April, an old friend embarks on a 1,000-mile journey. The bird that was once caged is out flying. The pond-bound fish has joined the river's course. Through the hometown is far behind. Why worry when we are in spirit together? Human affairs are full of misses and disappointments, each day bringing more concern. But then between black and white squares, purity and strategy intertwine. Hasten toward the rival's line. Strive with might, no turning back, awaiting your triumphant return, friend.
You did a great job of that,
Thank you.
Hammer. Well done. And it's just such a nice gesture, no?
No, but I'm so amazed by if this is like a Chinese thing. It's
It
incredible.
must be a cultural thing, right?
Yeah, but also like what was Wei Yi's grades in school? Like this feels like a rather good, because I feel like in
I don't
school
think
when
that
we wrote
poetry is so much
poems,
about school. Like I think even if you maybe stopped school early because of jazz, I think is what you're implying. I think all of the Chinese always struck me as being somewhat cultured. Like even photos of Dingley Wren, he just looks like, he has other thoughts than chess in his mind, more so than other. I'm completely projecting here. This is my own interpretation. But and Casey in the chat is saying that it's an ancient limerick. I actually specialized on literature in school. Poetry was never, I was never too much into poetry, but the limerick definitely rings a bell. So if it is actually a limerick, then it's not just, some words thrown together. Then where he actually knows, knew what he was. I mean, obviously, a lot of effort went into this anyway, but yeah. Um,
So are we gonna make something for
Make a
Hikaru?
poem. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT to.
Oh, I was just gonna use chat.
Okay, chat. Over to you. There has 2 weeks to go. We have 2 weeks until the start of the candidates. We'll just send
But
it, and we can send it to, because, okay, we don't know who's on Hikaru's team, but I think, again, we can speculate that Chris Littlejohn will definitely be in Cyprus. So we can then send it to Chris to read it out
what was
for
the
Hikaru.
April reference? Because the match was in
Yeah.
November, no? But I feel like I didn't realize how combative it was going to be in the final two lines. I'm not sure I kind of
About
switched
the
the
triumphant
momentum.
return
Yeah.
and
It went from being quite, um, serene to suddenly
Oh,
really
it
picking
was
up
in
pace.
April. It was not the match against Gukesh. It was the previous match, and that was in April.
Ah,
The match against Jan
yeah, I forgot that even
in
happened.
Kazakhstan. Yeah, it was in Kazakhstan, and it was in April. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Shaitan.
In
Okay, back
other
to the
news,
game.
Fiona,
Yeah.
I am wrong yet again. So when this H4 move came, I said, okay, Awonder has abandoned his plan of pushing the pawns quickly through the center. Now, after Queen C7, which is fine, Bishop out, maybe Hikaru could castle here. Um, but he chose to kind of start a potential counterattack toward the white knight. Now suddenly f4 comes, and I don't know what to think about this because I don't think this move and this move necessarily combine that well. But the thing is, when white plays f4, there's a threat in the position. There's a huge threat in the position, making that pawn break in the center. And we need to have a plan on how to deal with this.
Someone in chat was saying that H6 is maybe forced now, even.
It is certainly the top choice of the chess engines. And then, wow, one of the suggestions here on White's behalf is to just completely ignore the threat on the bishop, because if the bishop is captured, suddenly White gets to open up a method of attack down the left flank. And of course, Hikaru doesn't even need to take the bishop, but you know. I guess my point is this is starting to become rather spicy.
By the way, Wandering Bishop with some great suggestions. Maybe we just need to hold a vote after on one of those poems and we're done. But Chris has to read it out to Hikaru. That's part of the deal. Yeah, this is getting very spicy very quickly, Hammer.
Yeah. Why is E5 bad? Asks Mr. Menace. So, in general, we never want to move this pawn unless we've already kicked White's knight away. So in some circumstances, when we play pawn to b4 and the knight has to retreat, then we can push forward in the center. But as it stands, this pawn push for black right now is just not really an option because it opens up an amazing square moving forward for the white knight.
Hammer, can I quickly read out a poem from the chat?
Yeah.
It's not about Hikaru, it's about you.
About
Okay,
me.
here it comes. Roses are red, violets are blue. Hammer said, however, and the jinx came through.
I
Shout out
mean,
to baby girl Bailey.
I think having read Vai's poem, we have much greater expectations than just the standard flower
You haven't
reference.
said it once yet today. I think we're still waiting.
You had a good butt there at the beginning. I noticed
Thanks, Hammer.
the word, not the body part.
You guys, I leave it to you guys to your imagination what we get up to pre stream. Okay, so F4. And Hikaru is thinking, Hammer, if Hikaru doesn't play h6, how bad is this?
So I guess something like rook to d8 would very much be a consideration, because then if white continues their attack through the center, then our rook is already aligned with the white queen, ready to move this bishop out of the way, attack the queen, and then maybe get a good square for the knight in the center of the board afterwards. So that seems very much something we can do. Bishop here first, same kind of idea. If now the pawn pushes, then we transpose into that other line by moving our rook in afterwards. So I would say we have plenty of options beyond this h6 move. Yeah, quite simply. But there is one consideration, and that is after pawn to h6 and takes, we still have the tricky decision of whether to take back with the pawn or taking back with the bishop. Taking back with the pawn is the classical Sicilian way of playing. If you play the classical Sicilian like Hikaru did here, this is the pawn formation you're expecting to have happen. On the other hand, if you take back with the bishop, you remove the bishop's defense of the d6 square. But on the other hand, when white captures this, you do have some ideas. I'm seeing here the computer wants to do something with the move b4, forcing the knight back because it doesn't have any other available squares. And then you're down a pawn, but in the endgame, you have the two bishops working together. I mean, I wouldn't want to be down a pawn. So I'm thinking maybe not this. And rather go with the pawn takes and go with the standard classical Sicilian pawn formation.
As I said, I've actually never played an open Sicilian in my whole life as black. How do we feel about and I just keep looking at that king on e8. I'm like, is that king? I guess that king is just gonna stay there.
Yeah, it's just gonna stay there. So right now, these two pawns on the queen side, they're not giving a lot of protection on the queen side. This pawn on the king side, it's not giving a lot of protection over there. Where is it black has pawns? In the middle, 4 pawns versus white's 2. Huge difference. And
Hmm.
that is essentially the reasoning for why people play this opening. You're saying that, yeah, my king is going to be a bit unsafe, but I'm going to keep it in the center of the board, and I'm going to have a huge pawn army dealing with well, kind of keeping the king safe. Just essentially creating a fortress around the king, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just have a hard time on, I think it's tough anyway, but when you're so unfamiliar, like looking at this position is like looking at a Chinese poem to me. It's just like I I would definitely be much more comfortable playing this as white, but I'm sure if you're black and you know the ideas and you know what you're supposed to do, it's a
Okay,
different
but if
story.
you're so comfortable with white, how about you take the white pieces and I take the black pieces then?
Okay. Okay, let me think. Okay, we do have the engine is on, but I think bishop f3 is a move that makes a lot of sense anyway.
Sure, I'll go rook b8.
Okay, my idea would just be to somehow blast open the center, right? I understand that if I blast it open, I'm gonna give you a bishop pair. And basically, I'm just hoping I can kill your king before your bishop pair gets to shine. Is that
Yeah.
a fair? Is that?
Well,
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Is G4 so stupid, or are you gonna be fast
well,
with
so the thing
some?
is, I'm starting to reach the point, which we talked about earlier, where I kick back this knight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since the knight is no longer threatening to get in here, I can start thinking about ideas like pawn to e5. And then I'm not the biggest expert on these kind of positions myself, but you can see some kind of situation where black is essentially saying, okay, I'll keep my king here, I'll keep my rook here. I understand that these pieces are really going to struggle getting into the game, but I am going to create rather a dangerous attack, pushing my pawn forward, maybe even all the way down toward the white king.
Yeah, very, very, very double-edged position. I think today there is a very good chance we'll see a decisive result in this game. Just to answer a quick question from RM Cool in the chat, wondering is white always to the left and black always to the right side, as seen from the camera? Most of the time, yes, and that's only because usually the clock is on the black player's right-hand side. Since white already has an edge by having the white pieces, at some point it was decided black should at least, as a small compensation, get the clock on the handier side.
To the
So
frustration of all the left-handed chess players.
you're left-handed, right?
No.
No,
Are
I
you?
thought. No, I'm also no.
Okay.
And so
Do we
yeah,
know
because
any left-handed chess players? Not to kind of distract from the situation at hand, but that is
yeah,
such a good trivia question.
we do, but will it come back to us? Someone's saying Arjun. I feel like I know at least one, but I don't think it's
Okay,
him.
because I cannot think of anyone off the top of
No?
my head. I have a fun
People
fact
in.
about Magnus.
Yeah.
Magnus is right-handed and left-footed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but apparently that's fairly common.
No.
I googled
Okay.
it.
Apparently, Bobby. Okay, let me see if famous
My
left-handed
sister is left-handed, and she
player.
was the club champion 1 year. To be fair, she was the only girl participating in her age group that year, but
Hammer, I have some big names for you.
Okay.
So chat, shout out
Chat
to
GPT or
shout.
someone else?
Wait, I just typed it into Google and then it gives me an AI. Shout out to Nakamura Magnus, who knew that Arjun is a lefty, and Richard Report, that's correct as well. And Hans Niemann is left-handed according to this.
Wait,
Dubov,
are you trusting the AI just like that?
yeah, why not?
I'm pretty sure they told us not to trust the stuff like that.
I don't have time to do. Okay, it says Niels Gwendelius is left-handed. So, okay, I'm just gonna send because Niels, actually the man responds so quickly. We're just gonna message Niels, and if Niels is right, surely the others on the list also are
But if
right.
that one about Nils is wrong,
But I think, yeah,
will you then concede that we cannot be using this as a source?
yes.
Okay.
And now we wait. Now we wait. But I also feel like with Niels, I should really know it. But it feels like being left-handed is, even if you're good friends with someone, you so rarely, unless you pay really attention when they're sitting at the board, but
I
people
know
so
very
rarely
well
write
that Magnus
these.
is left-footed because I've defended against him in soccer so many times. And
Niels has
he's
already responded. Yes. Why?
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
But then lefties are like 10% of the population, right?
Yeah. That's a lot
Are we
of
now saying that there's an extraordinary amount of top chess players that are left-handed?
Well, if we take Eric Geisy, Report, Niemann, Dubov, Gawain Jones, Niels Gwendelius. I mean, that's one player
Gawain,
out
I
of the
think,
top
is a
10.
left-handed. He has
Yeah.
very poor handwriting,
But that
which is like
actually
a
exact more or less figures out, right? Because Arjun is the only player in the top 10, so he makes up the 10% there. I guess Report is somewhere in the top 20 and Hans in the top 30, so does that make sense? That we have one per tier, roughly? I think it's I've forgotten what we're even trying to demonstrate. Oh, we were trying to demonstrate if there's a particular high percentage of lefties, right? Among us.
well, I mean, I think it started out just as a fun trivia thing.
Yeah.
Because that's how we like to roll.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
let's
true.
do a poll in chat. How many of you watch this channel for Fiona and mine's chess expertise? And then how many people watch it because we have the best trivia?
Oh my god. Literally a wonder is left-handed, as someone just pointed out in chat.
No, but seriously, that's more than 10% of the top 450 in the world, no?
It does, I agree with you. It does seem like a higher than usual. But what people were saying, because Jaren in chat was just saying, in a family of 5, I'm the only right-handed person and I'm also the only creative. And someone was saying, oh no, but then another person said lefties tend to be more creative, which is the opposite of what Jaren was saying.
Yeah, but you cannot trust individual. Are you left or right-handed? But chat is terrible at chess. Oh, but we're trying to determine the general population. Yeah, that makes sense. It must be interesting
it's
being
gone.
ambidextrous.
Where is the the poll has disappeared for me.
Yeah, me as well. I think I was too critical of it
Yeah.
at a very important early stage.
This is Hikaru's first really very long think of the game, right?
Yeah, he's no longer in his preparation, that's for sure. And that's kind of concerning because this is a tricky position. But I think he's going to take back with a pawn. So the reason the computer feels it's very important to play h6 at this time is because the computer wants to provoke the trade between the bishop and the knight at a moment where taking back with the bishop, sacrificing a pawn, is a pretty decent move. But I don't think Hikaru wants to give up this pawn. I think that would result in a position where there's no chance for Hikaru to win with the black pieces. It would just be a defensive task. So I'm thinking Hikaru wants to make this recapture with the pawn, which is interesting because that means he doesn't need to play the h6 move. Taking back with the pawn is acceptable in every circumstance. And so then he has to be more attentive rather to the pawn push in the center. So what Hikaru wants to do, he wants to go rook b8 and he wants to go b4. So he wants to kick this white knight away. And right now the knight has no safe squares to go to because, well, all the places this knight can go is being occupied by other white pieces. So Hikaru wants to do this and then take the knight. Problem is, this allows white
Come
to.
on, give us our first, however.
Apparently, today is not the day. I keep finding nice alternate phrases and synonyms and whatnot. But yeah, here the pawn push in the center is a big issue. So if Hikaru wants to take back with the pawn, he needs to kind of combine it with a sensible move that takes out some of the sting in that pawn push, which is making me think maybe bishop to c6. The idea being that then if the capture, we take with the pawn, and then we go with a rook here and attack this after. On the other hand, this allows white to push this pawn forward. And very often, white targets this pawn on e6 with as many threats as possible in order to make it go forward, which in turn allows the white knight the access to the d5 square. So actually, maybe we're not supposed to leave the protection of this pawn. Damn it. Maybe we have to go h6 even if we want to capture with a pawn, simply because going h6 attacks the bishop, which prevents the pawn push in the middle.
I am honestly very impressed because I was struggling to make sense of any of it, but I think that you have, by deduction, brought us to the right answer.
What was
That
the
was
question
that.
again?
No, I just
Now we know the answer, but remind
no,
me,
the
what
question
was the
is
question?
why would we have to play h6 if we want to recapture with the pawn anyway?
Yeah.
But I think Hammer, you know what I think? I think now is a good time for our first break because Hikaru has already been spending some time, but I think it's not unlikely he's going to be spending quite a bit more. So we're going to take a very short break and we'll be back soon with all the action from the second and last classical game of the training match. Hello and welcome back to this game between Hikaru and Awonder Liang, the second game of this training match. And even though we talked for a long time, took a break, Hikaru is still thinking. How long? Do you have any idea how long it's been?
In a while, definitely 20 minutes, maybe more.
Yeah, I want to say
And
more.
the more time Hikaru spends, the more concerned I am on his behalf in terms of there being some rather challenging decisions for him to make.
So maybe we can, while we wait for Hikaru to make a move, just very quickly recap, maybe for people who have just arrived, what's been going on today. Just very quickly go over the opening. So Hikaru played the Sicilian, which must have, well, the Sicilian will not have come as a surprise, but the particular choice of Sicilian uh, probably came as a surprise to Awonder. But he chose one of the main lines, a sharp approach, and then something quite unconventional, Hammer, with this both h4 and f4.
Yeah, King B1 was already kind of a rare move, but Hikaru seemed very well prepared for it, blitzed out the trade of the knights, followed by the bishop up. At this stage of the game, Awonder was spending quite a bit of time, decided on the h4 move, which was rare. Hikaru continued playing quickly, so it made us think that he knew what he was doing and that he had everything under control. But with this latest move, pawn to f4, Hikaru seems to be firmly out of his preparation, and he's facing a problematic decision because the top computer choice right now is pawn to h6, bishop takes the knight, recapture with a bishop, thereby abandoning the protection of a central pawn. And after this trade, the computer's top choice is to retreat the bishop and then push forward in the center, knocking white's knight back, and then somehow claiming that this is fine for black despite being down a pawn. And my general impression is that maybe this is fine for black, but it's not going to be joyous. And it's not going to be a position where Hikaru is fighting for the win. I think it rather feels like a situation where you give up a pawn, but you have enough defensive resources to defend, crucially, defend into a draw. And based on the amount of time Hikaru's been thinking right now, I don't think he's in the mood to give up a pawn and sit defending for the whole game. So my suspicion is that he's considering recapturing with a pawn whenever White decides to go for this trade. And then he's trying to optimize how his other pieces should be placed in preparation for that very, very big decision about changing the pawn formation, making a position where black can no longer castle to the king side. And yeah, generally just a very double edged thing.
And chat has confirmed that Hikaru has in fact been thinking for half an hour. Already someone made me laugh. Someone asked how long has Hikaru been thinking? And another person responded, here since yesterday. So I guess that person is somewhere in Asia or something where the midnight was just has just passed. But yeah, it's becoming a concern now. Hikaru is definitely spending more time than he did yesterday. I think surely time management is one of the reasons that motivated Hikaru to play this match. Especially, let's not forget, in case you weren't here yesterday, this is the exact same time control that will be used in the candidates, so it's great practice for that now that the stakes are a lot lower. But yeah, Hikaru doesn't seem too happy with the position on the board, and there are no fun moves to make right now. You probably have to resign yourself to play H6, but yeah, he'll have to come to that soon.
Yeah, and even if you decide to play h6,
Yeah.
it's not obvious whether you take with the bishop or the pawn when the trade happens.
DZ is asking, would a third classical game tomorrow be better practice? Well, you can't really have a classical match with just 3 games, right? If you're gonna have classical
I mean,
games, it
you
would have to be.
could.
Yeah, you could, but it would be very strange.
It would be unusual,
It would be
but
very unusual.
having a
I also
practice match
think,
is not super normal to begin with, right?
yeah, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this, at least ahead of such a big tournament as the candidates. I think it makes sense to play some rapid and blitz games as well. Just get in more games, get in more practice. Just shake off the rust against a strong opponent. And let's not forget, in the candidates, there is a possibility of a rapid playoff. So I think the way it is makes a lot of sense to me. Yes, it's happening in St. Louis. No, it's not rated because the match was not submitted 30 days ahead, but they wanted to make it rated. What other questions? When is candidates? The first round is on the 29th of March. Hammer and I will be here throughout the tournament to take you through all the action, and I'm really tremendously excited for it.
What do you think about starting the candidates tournament, the second biggest event of the year, on a Sunday?
On a day where the clocks change as well.
Well, that has been a consideration I've been thinking about, but more so a Sunday where, if you want to have a live audience, then
Yeah.
missing out on a Saturday feels like a bit of a.
It is strange. Yeah, I agree with. When does it end on a Sunday as well, or when does it end? What's the No, it ends in the
uh
middle of the week.
yeah.
Last day is a Wednesday, and if there is playoffs, they will be on a Thursday. Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, officially, right, the tournament, I think, and that's why in chess it's so terrible. It's not a discussion for here and now, but so often tournaments have the dates, including the opening ceremony, including. So a lot of people do think that the candidates tournament starts on the 28th, which is probably the official starting date. But that's the official starting date for the opening ceremony, technical meeting, all of that stuff. The first game will be on the Sunday, and I agree with you. I think it would be better to have it on a Saturday, but I
But
don't
I'm
know.
I'm wondering whether the fact that Europe changes to daylight savings or away from or wherever we are in the cycle, maybe that actually has had an impact on when they decide to start the tournament. Because if they started on the Saturday, then the players would have to kind of get 1 hour jet lag as
Mm,
we adjust the clocks the night of Sunday.
yeah. Um,
How do you feel about daylight savings?
I don't have a strong opinion.
Seriously?
No,
Because all everything I've been reading on it the past couple of years, it's
people
like
want to get rid of it, right?
everyone is unanimous that it's
Yeah.
a bad thing. It is poor for sleep quality. It doesn't really do what you thought sought out to do, and that everyone wants to get rid of it.
I wouldn't mind getting rid of it, but I also don't particularly care either way, is my stance. Like I'm looking forward to the days being longer. Uh, I've never given enough thought to what would actually change if we got rid of it.
We don't really struggle at our days not being long enough. Capture with a pawn after this trade. White needs to make the trade now.
Schmupsy is asking, how many games will the match have? The match will have 10 games in total. That took me some time. They will play 4 rapid games and 4 blitz games tomorrow. What I was wondering, Hammer, one of the reasons I was bugging out is because I don't actually know if in this match, if the classical games hold more weight than the rapid and then the blitz, or if, because if there
I
is
don't
no,
think the match is being played to
because
kind
there's
of
no
declare a
prizes,
winner.
maybe, so there's no.
What I will say is that I'm pretty sure they will keep playing all the games regardless of whether one player has already won the match. The objective here is to get some
Play.
practice games
Yeah,
in, not necessarily who's winning or not.
it makes perfect sense. HD Motivated is asking, so Hikaru struggling against a wonder in 2 games is good or bad for candidates? I don't think it's such an indicator necessarily, um, regardless of what happened. I think you can never, no matter how hard you try, you can never replicate, the situation from the candidates, the stakes, the opponents. Also, this match, what have we seen so far? Yeah, yesterday Hikaru was on the back foot for a little while, but he also had good moments in the game. Actually, Hammer, for those people who weren't here yesterday, how would you sum up yesterday's game?
Yesterday, yeah, Awonder played a very uncommon opening with the black pieces. It became very, very interesting. Hikaru struggled with a somewhat inferior pawn structure, pawn formation. But at one moment, Hikaru could have retaken the initiative in the game, as that moment was missed, but also Awonder missed some better moves himself in that phase. The game kind of petered out to a draw fairly shortly thereafter. So it was a tense game, a competitive game, and I think that's what Hikaru wants. I think the question is, this bad news for Hikaru, for the candidates, that he's under pressure in these games? And the answer to that, I think, is quite clearly no, because if he wanted to, he could have played a match over 2 games against me or someone my strength, and he could have destroyed me 2-0, and it still wouldn't have made him better prepared for the candidates, because he needs to have opposition at a certain level. That is why he's playing this match, and that's why it's kind of good that he's getting tough games, because that is the practice he needs. He doesn't need to beat some has-been GM 2-0.
And Hammer, we were right in our assessment that Hikaru didn't want to play this pawn down position. But as you explained already, this is has the potential to become very ugly if a wonder finds f5, puts that pressure on e6, and manages to get Hikaru to play e5 eventually.
Yeah, but this is kind of just how they play this classical Sicilian. I'm not super concerned on Hikaru's behalf just yet, but I think it's important to look at the difference between this position we have in the game right now and this position that could have happened. And so Hikaru's assessment is that the current position on the board is better for him than this one would have been. And the answer is that Hikaru is wrong. Hikaru has made a wrong assessment here about getting this bishop in a so-called better position. Because now, as the position progresses, the bishop may have been useful defending the e6 pawn, and the bishop might block the queen from chasing the white queen away. Now, as it happens, Awonder does not play the f5 move we talked about, which was the computer's recommendation, which was really trying to emphasize Black's lack of protection on that e6 pawn very, very much immediately. And then Hikaru sits ready with his move right afterwards. And he goes for this classic wanting to have the queen trade, which is very typical of this classical Sicilian opening. And in general, white will always avoid the queen trade because one of the main problems for black is the lack of safe haven for the king. So we would assume here that Awonder avoids the trade of the queens, allowing Hikaru to activate his queen to a good square, and then Awonder will start putting this pressure in against the black pawns controlling the light squares, because what white is hoping for here is to take over control on
I'm
the light
so
squares.
I'm sorry, but I'm so confused. The computer here in this position is suggesting rook d8.
Yeah. If pawn takes, then the bishop is
Oh,
undefended.
that's so sneaky.
Yeah, but I don't think this is what Hikaru would do. If this position happens, Hikaru's plan is very straightforward, and we actually spoke about it earlier in the game, Fiona. Because okay, you have this pressure against the e6 pawn. The e6 pawn doesn't want to move because the knight can then push forward. But what you do, the classic way of playing the classical Sicilian, is to push the knight back and then push the pawn forward. And like computer says advantage white, but this is a very double-edged position where black has won many, many games in similar situations, including the guy I said is the hero for this opening and for this pawn structure, which is Kozul of Croatia.
Croatia. Mhm. Bishop h5 was an interesting move that I didn't see coming. That wasn't on my radar at all. Queen a7 makes a lot of sense. I think Awonder will not swap queens. But if you don't swap, what do you think? Do you think d3 is the square that makes the most sense, right?
Yeah. But I also think Hikaru is fine right now. I don't think he has major issues. I think actually I think bishop to h5 was a mistake, and that the reason the computer liked white here was very much based on the ability to create issues immediately. So let's see what if Awonder had played f5 immediately instead, then after queen a7, which was the obviously the plan that Hikaru had in mind, trying to activate his queen. The reason the engine feels this is good for white is not the retreat of the queen, because then the knight is actually out of squares. which explains why Awonder wanted to move his bishop pointing at the king, right? Because not only is he pointing at the black king, he's also creating an escape for the knight. But the computer here is saying pawn takes pawn is the way to go, because then after the recapture, you can give a check, force the king to move, and then move the queen back and argue that this is very advantageous for white because the black king is quite exposed. But I still think this is not obvious, though. I think this is the kind of position Hikaru was aiming for. And he has the superior control with the pawns in the center. He has the long-term advantage of the bishops. White has an isolated pawn in the middle. To instantly look at this position and say white is almost winning, that is something only a computer can do, not a human player.
Yeah, that does make perfect sense. Meanwhile, Awonder has played queen d3 as expected, and he's gotten up from the board, leaving Hikaru to ponder his next move. You talked about queen c5. Do you think there are other candidate moves?
No. 100%, Hikaru is going to play queen c5. Awonder is going to play f5. Then we're going to chase this knight, and we're gonna push forward in the center. And this kind of position, super interesting. Great chances to win for Hikaru in the long run, and also fairly straightforward what he's trying to achieve. So in general, you're just going to be pushing that pawn up the side of the board, try and get yourself established as close to the white king as possible. And then what you're going to look out for is you got to make sure that this white knight doesn't manage to maneuver itself to the d5 square. So as long as you keep an eye on that, you're going to have the position pretty reasonably under control, because white mostly is trying to make things happen in this open d file, but black has good control of the important squares there.
You know, I think today the clock situation, I know it's very early to talk about this, as both players still have over an hour, but let's remind the viewers who were not here yesterday, there is no increment here before move 40. And it feels like this position is very tricky to play for both sides. So I do expect both of them to spend quite a bit of time, and I think eventually we could see something very close to a time scramble here if the game goes this far.
There's a good question from chat from Ed, who asks, "What's the long-term plan for the Black King's safety?" And I responded in chat that the plan is essentially to get a queen trade down the line. But how do you get a queen trade when that is so obviously in black's favor rather than white's? And the answer is we're going to create threats against the white king that becomes so significant that white cannot ignore, and maybe even starts seeking out a queen trade themselves. So, for instance, here, pawn to g4, we're going to push up here. If white tries to do this plan I spoke about with the knight maneuvering itself to the d5 square, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to keep pushing here on the queen side. And then now, if black somehow gets the queen here, we're gonna be checkmating. And at some point, white is gonna feel the need to go for a queen trade, like something like this. And then we get the queen trade, and then the king is safe. But we have to get the queen trade under the best possible circumstances. And right now, the computer is informing me that this was not the best way of doing things. But okay, let me use this move instead. Rook c8, and then yeah, at some point, computer is even giving moves like d5, takes, e4, trying to lure the white queen away so that we get the checkmate.
What happens here after queen d? Ah, c2 is hanging as well.
So
Okay.
so this is kind of the future we are envisioning, and it is why this classical Sicilian has a reputation for being such an interesting opening, because it's so common that we see positions like these where a black has the 4 pawns versus 2 pawns in the center, um, but it's not clear whether you're going to survive any kind of attack on your king.
Interesting, Hammer. I have just now, after years on Kick, because I always, whenever I see someone responding to a comment, I just look in the chat to find that comment if, it's too long. And now I realize you can just hover over the texts that the response is to, and then you see the comment there. So that's just gonna change my life going forward. There'll be a lot less scrolling for me to do and searching for comments. But yeah, someone at DC I think was making the point that this training match, it is a bit like a friendly in football, right? I think that's a fair comparison.
Yeah, friendlies in soccer becoming less and less common though, because now they're doing all these summer cups, right? Instead of
Hammer, I used to be such a big football fan, but ever since they changed the format of the Champions League, and all these changes, and I'm like, I don't like change. I've been watching the Champions League all my life, and suddenly there are so many teams, and they all play each other randomly, and I'm like, what was wrong with the good old system when I knew exactly exactly what was happening? So yeah, I've not been following it
it's the
as
exact same number of teams as before, right?
really. I didn't even realize. But they all like not in groups as they, should
Oh
be.
no, they're not in groups.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop watching at all because they're not in the four groups. There's more games. Maybe there's slightly more teams, but there's
It's more
not more.
confusing.
It's not more. Come on.
Mm, I'll die on that hill.
Okay, Chris is saying the new format is amazing. Which team do you support? You support Liverpool.
Yeah.
Is Liverpool struggling under the new format? Are you kind of just having negative thoughts based on Liverpool's incredibly poor season?
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the Champions League, right?
I don't know.
I mean, also when the changes were made, they were champions, so I didn't just suddenly this year. Liverpool is struggling, but that's nothing to do with my. Yeah, it's actually Hammer, I have to say, Bubblecrumb Crisis. It's one of the biggest issues I have with Hammer is that he calls football soccer. It irks me every
It's
time, and
such a European thing to get hung up on.
I.
I learned English in the US. I lived in Berkeley, California for a year as a kid. I played at the Rock Ridge Soccer Club, whose whose um whose jerseys were yellow and green, which is a different kind of worms altogether.
What? Yellow
Uh,
and green? Well, yellow and
Yellow
green.
and green.
Okay.
It doesn't sound great, does it?
No, who's yellow and green? Norwich or something? Or am
Yeah.
I
Um,
like yellow and green.
but you know,
Funky.
with my background, I will continue calling soccer soccer.
But how long
That's
have
just
you
how it is.
been in Europe for?
What do you mean? Number of years I lived in Europe as opposed to living in the US? I
You
I
should
am
have
now
what I'm trying to say is you
I am
should have
soon
understood your mistake by
I
now.
I am soon your age, Fiona. So that
Yeah.
means 35 years I've lived in Europe rather than the US.
That's no, that's not possible.
But English,
Did you only spend 1 year in
yeah.
Oh, oh. Then your excuse is I always thought your excuse was quite debatable to begin with, but now your excuse is inadmissible in this court, Mr. Hammer.
In the language that I speak, American English, the name for the sport is soccer. You're complaining not about what I'm calling it, but you're complaining about me speaking American rather than English. And I'm
So when
sorry, and your English is Irish, which
No, that's
let's
not
talk
true.
about that
You
instead.
said that. Like, it's funny. You are one of a few people who've picked up on that, but I never spent any time in Ireland until I was much older.
But
But when
you got
how
the
do you spell
Irish.
color in writing?
I spell color the correct way.
So you are all American.
No, I try to be, but there's one word I'm really bad at where I definitely yeah, I struggle because but it has been difficult for me. You should have some sympathy with me because I've been educated in English in a system that promotes British English.
Mm-hmm.
So I've struggled with teachers saying no, it's not color, it's color, and these kind of things. And it some words that I learned at a later stage than when I was living in the US. I sometimes struggled knowing that that is a British English thing rather than yeah, and it's not something I should say.
I'll let you off for
I also spell through the right way.
through.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You're going through something very serious right now, Fiona.
Yeah, but I didn't realize there were two ways of spelling
Well, now you know.
it. I was so confused. Chat is confused with me at least, so don't let him up. I'll try again another time, Bubblegum Crisis. But for now, we need. Do you actually. What
Oh,
Daho is
you're
right?
shocked. You're so I can tell you're reading chat and you're
Yeah.
so shocked.
I'm like, no, this is
You
a
you
step
you
too far.
thought thruff is an appropriate way of spelling this word when you can spell through with how it actually sounds.
I genuinely didn't know that you can correctly spell it that. Is that actually true?
I'm pretty sure it's true.
True, the way it was spelled there, the way you are claiming to spell it, is an informal, shortened variant often used in casual writing, signage, or for drive-through services.
Oh, so I'm not even allowed to use it in American English?
No, only if you want to be really cruel and lazy.
Wow. Eddie Izzard has a very good kind of stand-up routine on some of these.
Who?
I've taken through from there. Eddie Izzard?
No, sorry.
No?
No. Let's see stand-up comedy also.
Yeah. But
And
he says about like the differences between American English and British English that in America you spell through. And he says he's on board with that because spelling it thruff is just trying to cheat at Scrabble.
That's fair enough.
Let's
To
put a
be
G
fair,
in there.
to
And
be
then, yeah,
fair,
a silent G.
I will give you that British English sometimes use a lot of extra letters where you're like, what do I need? I remember the first time I landed in, I think, Birmingham Airport to play for NCL, which was, I later went on to live in London and learn how all the places are called and everything. But the first time I landed there to play chess, I had to take a train towards Leicester. And I went to the office and I asked the lady, where was the train towards Leicester? And she was like, what? So that was my introduction
I
to.
mean, I didn't learn how to pronounce Leicester until they won the league. So, and I think that's not a very uncommon point in time.
Yeah. Queen c5, meanwhile, on the board. That's a move that you were expecting quite a bit faster, I
Yeah,
think.
I don't know how he spent 13 minutes on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have the position that we discussed previously. F5, B4, knight back, pawn push in the center. This position is happening, and I like it for Hikaru.
Why do you like it?
Because Black's plan is very easy and straightforward, and Black has the long-term advantages. The 4 versus 2 pawns in the center, the bishop pair. It's like computer likes white based on computery things. That is very direct and going after the king, but also not necessarily intuitive. Humans think much more strategically than tactically. I think maybe I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
in general, in order for humans to kind of sort their thoughts, we rely on strategic features more than kind of just, oh, but I'm gonna get a very easy attack here. Um, so that's why I think this is going to be good for. Okay, to be fair, that was a good move from Awonder because he realized that this normal plan of trying to attack the light squares was very easily met by this classic counter plan of just blocking the knight's access moving forward. So Awonder instead, he's saying he has the bishop that moves on the light squares. How am I going to deal with this position? I need to place my pawns on the dark squares. So with this move, Awonder is saying, I want to control both the light squares and the dark squares, and I'm going to play pawn to g5 soon.
Okay, so when you let's make a move for black, let's say a5 or whatever we want to do on the queen side, and g5. Can't I just? I mean, I okay. Let chat guess. Sorry, let's go back just to that position before b4. Can anyone in chat guess what the top engine line was here for a second? It's gone now to the third position, but for a while it was in pole position. What move here for black did the computer flag first as the top
And
move?
consider Fiona asking this because
Flabbergasted.
it's a very British word of you.
It's not king d7. It's not king c8 is not a legal move. It is indeed Boblek castles, kingside.
Yeah. Well, chess is fun, huh?
That's insane. It's bollocks. Exactly, to continue the British the Britishness of the stream.
Honestly, not a bad move, though. It gets away from the bishop's diagonal. Now this bishop is misplaced because you want to keep pushing the pawns forward here. And the king is reasonably safe in the corner.
It just looks insane, right? You can't argue
I
with
mean,
that
the
hammer.
more I'm looking at this, the more I'm thinking, oh, this is great. This is very clever. And then after knight to e2, maybe we can do something like this.
Mm-hmm. And take with the queen, get those queens off.
Yeah. Well, we're up a rook. I'm not
Yeah.
loving black's position, to be fair. But we are up a rook. So
You like material.
yeah, but I also like pawn structures. And I must say that black's pawns do not make the best impression here. But yeah, this kind of thing could happen.
So let's go back to the variation you were looking at. Instead of castling, you had suggested b4.
Yeah, but that was actually kind of just bad. Because
No,
if
but I meant
b4...
a5, a5, g5, and then b4.
Yeah, sure. But I think
Yeah.
it makes sense talking a bit about this
Yep.
first, because b4 we have been talking about a lot, removing the knight from the prospect of getting to the d5 square. But as it turns out, the d4 square is super valuable as well. And we don't want to go with the pawn to the e5 square before white has played the f5 move themselves, because here suddenly that square is available for the knight.
Mm.
So Hikaru, he doesn't want to push these pawns over to the dark squares until white has committed with pawn f4 and put a pawn on the square where potentially the knight could be very good in the future. So now Hikaru needs to figure out a move that will be good in response to the f5. Well, he needs to do something that doesn't change his general idea of chasing white's knight back and then blocking the
Hikaru has
center.
actually made a move already. He's played rook c8.
Maybe I should start playing the classical Sicilian. Like, this is the kind of position where if you understand the plans and what's going on, you're going to beat everyone.
But
Right?
it's hard understanding those plans.
Yeah, but I'm saying if by some miracle you understand. Because it's so double-edged. There are
But
very
then why
clear
don't we see
long-term...
more classical Sicilians like this one at the highest level?
I guess the problem at the highest level is that
Nobody
you start to
understands it.
well, that as well, but also that the computer do regularly give an advantage for white. So you're scared of it being objectively bad, even though it often creates very enterprising games. I will say that Magnus won a very nice game in the classical Sicilian in Title Tuesday this week.
Mm.
Um,
He understands a bit of chess.
yeah. And you know what happened in Magnus's game? Suddenly, these two pawns were down here and they became new queens.
That's crazy. By the way,
So,
DC, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's a position that kind of builds up over time.
DC was asking what move number we're on. So move rook c8 was move 17. So the players still have to make 23 moves each. It's really getting very, very double-edged now.
Yeah, and then I'm so fascinated by some of these. So after g5, computer likes h6, which is very risky, I would say, because you're starting a fight in an area of the board where you're not super happy about things opening up toward your king.
Okay, let me see this computer reply f5.
B4 now only move.
Okay, knight e2.
Well, engine is also suggesting bishop f7.
What is going
Takes, takes, and now apparently moving the king out in the center is not a good idea, which, to be fair, I I have some sympathy for.
But okay, just show us the end of that line after king takes, queen h3, and if the king goes back. Okay.
Threatening both a checkmate and the bishop.
Not once you get to this position, it's very obvious, but far
It
from
wasn't
obvious from
super obvious
afar. No,
before.
no.
And so here the king should go back instead, but then the knight moves up.
Yeah, this is really computer land we're in.
So black is up a bishop, but remember those 4 pawns in front of the king we were talking about?
They were decimated.
Not so much anymore.
uh,
Still equal, according to the engine.
mm.
So yeah, we could see some very spicy stuff coming up. And still, Fiona, still one of the recommended lines by the computer, has this move, castles kingside. Apparently here, one of the best moves for black, get the king to safety.
Insane.
And by safety, we mean the corner. And completely ignore the fact that there were multiple captures you could have made. This looks strategically very bad for black, though, because here white manages to get a very well placed knight in the center of the board. Yeah, this is just horrendous.
Couple of questions. Hammer, do you think this game will end decisively? Was one question from chat.
Probably not, but the game is super exciting regardless. I am of the firm opinion that there are such a thing as exciting draws. And if this one ends up being a draw, it certainly qualifies.
You know, that is, since we were just on the topic of the English language, there is only one mistake you make all the time, but it seems so ingrained, like you never, like you always do. Like just now you said there are a thing or something, like sometimes you're plural and singular. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
you know this is
I didn't realize anyone had picked up on it.
What? I've been thinking of it every day for the past 4 years.
You never
you
said
always
it.
say it's
Yeah,
so...
no, my plural. I've never taken that very seriously. No. I will say that there was a point when I got back from the US in like 6th grade. I was one of the better English speakers in my class, obviously. But the teacher was going through some stuff on because I was usually kind of just fading out of English classes because I thought, well, I know all of this from before. And the teacher was going, I am, you are, he, she, and it is. And it kind of dawned on me, I don't know this stuff. Because I learned English by speaking. And so I have some, let's just say, holes in my grammar that is a lot more common for native speakers to have.
That's interesting.
So for instance, you notice how so many native speakers, especially I think in Britain, are doing this could of.
Yeah.
Instead of could have.
Yeah.
Could of. And like the people making these mistakes are almost exclusively native speakers because they don't understand how the grammar of their language is built up.
Same, I think it's is another example, like when does it's get an apostrophe and when does it not? And I agree that very often the mistakes are by native speakers. Anyway, I didn't mean to take a shot. It's just something that's I've been curious about for a long time because it's the only thing that I've picked up on in when it comes to your grammar. But anyway, Hikaru chat was not just saying that I was roasting you, they were also celebrating Hikaru finding the best move here and playing it in under 30 seconds. Hammer, is this the queen trade that we've been talking about for a long time and looking for a long time?
It is.
And we are
So
forcing it.
yeah, strategically for black, the king is somewhat prone to danger, but we said that we're going to try and fix the king's safety by going for the queen trade, and that is precisely what Hikaru has made happen here. And yeah, probably Awonder will have to move his knight into the center and kind of just play this position. Where he does manage to get an extra pawn pushing in toward the center to kind of reinforce his central control. Because right now, if Awonder both has to trade queens and doesn't reinforce his center, Hikaru's going to have very, very good long-term chances. So something like this, I'm expecting. And yeah, Hikaru's completely fine with the nice pawn shield still in front of the king and the two bishops being potential forces to be reckoned with in the long term.
Would you prefer playing black in the current position?
Yeah.
Do you think the
Wait,
bishops
the current analysis position,
the
right?
current I meant the live position, but
Oh.
we didn't
Um
deviate too far.
yeah, I think so. I'm curious about the queen takes queen being a recommendation here, because that goes against everything I just said about black just getting even more pawns into the center. But the argument here is that white gets a really good placement for the knight, because previously white was concerned that this knight was going to get kicked away. But because the black pawn moved in toward the center, we now no longer have the ability to kick this knight. And yeah, it's very difficult to assess. I mean, I would still kind of, my instinct would be that this is pretty good for black, but Engine kind of seems to disagree a little bit.
Does it, at the end of the day, all boil down to whether black, can open up the position for the bishops, or what does it boil down
Yeah,
to?
no, I'm like, if I can get my bishop over here, black is going to be almost winning, I feel like. Like if I could do two moves in a row here, black would just do very, very well. This would be a dream. But the
Not quite
problem is,
winning, but almost.
oh, I don't know. I think in practical play,
Yeah.
it's very problematic. But
Mm.
the thing here is, I cannot move the bishop back because then this pawn is undefended. So if I try to move the king up first to protect the pawn and then maneuver the bishop, problem is I then leave the pawn on f7
Mm.
undefended. And so maybe I go rook f8 followed by king up, bishop around. And then the concern becomes, well, what about if white just gets the two rooks pointing down? Well, then once again, you cannot move the bishop without giving up the protection of the pawn. So then I have to start doing this and this. And it becomes this game of how many preparation moves can you make in order to activate your bishop around here and still kind of get away with it? But actually, now that I'm looking at this, like this seems fine. If I can just get the bishop back and king over, this looks good for black. Okay, apparently there's some issues, but yeah. And then to answer your question, I would take black. Yes.
Awonder has just decided on a move he did not capture. He did go for the first move we looked at, knight d4.
Which I think makes perfect sense. He couldn't avoid the trade of queens, so now he's trying to make the queen trade happen in such a way that he gets to reinforce his central control.
So I suspect Hikaru to capture on d3 quite quickly.
Anything other than the trade of queens right now would be shocking. That is very clearly the strategy Hikaru's been going for, yeah, for a long time.
I'm very curious to see how this game is going to, how this end game is going to unfold. It's a very interesting dynamic imbalance.
So I guess take back and then rook c1, I think makes sense.
And again, this time I'm on board with castling at
Yeah,
last,
yeah.
with the queens off the board.
Someone in chat was asking, how does black activate the rook in the corner? And here we see the rook just like the doctor ordered, getting into the game, supporting its buddy and making sure that, because if you go for the trade here, then it's very problematic with the invasion of white's rook coming up. But as long as you just keep the tension and get another rook over to keep things under control, here the computer agrees that black is indeed better. So yeah, I'm liking Hikaru's position. I think he is better here, and then we'll see if he manages to kind of outmaneuver his opponent, and because the computer feels like white is very, very slightly better. So I guess my argument is that the position is easier to play for a human with the black pieces.
Hammer, we've just been through a long phase of the game where a lot has happened, and now the situation, we have arrived at a point where the situation has clarified. So I think this is a good time for us to take the next break. I think overall the developments of the last hour have been very positive. For Hikaru, I'm going into this break feeling a lot more relaxed and at ease than I did the previous break. So grab yourselves a cup of tea, you know, to continue the British theme, and we'll see you on the other side of this break. Hello and welcome back again to Hikaru's training match against Awonder Liang and Hammer. While we were gone, we only missed one little move, but that little move is given the chess.com green star.
Yeah, signaling that it was the best choice in the position. And I've been playing around a little bit with the move suggestions going forward. And I noticed that one of our favorite ideas, Castle's Kingside, is not on the engine's top three. So I decided to go investigating what happens if this. Bishop to g4 is the suggestion. And then I felt like, okay, I'm just going to go here and get both of my rooks working down this file where there are no pawns blocking. And now f5. We see this very typical theme of white trying to overload the e6 pawn, forcing the pawn to step forward, leaving behind a very weakened d5 square. The knight tries to find that d5 square by maneuvering first back, but then forward. And now there is a free pawn to be had on the king side. But Engine is saying like that this is super, super good for white. The knight making its way to that d5 square, and also some ideas of the rook pointing down on black's king. I'm amazed, I must admit, that this is like stunning winning for white, but it does give us a clue that Hikaru may not be out of the woods to the degree that I thought as we went to break.
Okay, but what about, so he cannot castle in the position we currently have on the board, but what about other options? Or shouldn't castle at least.
Okay, let's see what he did. He does go bishop to d8, and that was the engine's top choice. And remember how we talked about this bishop d8 move earlier? It wasn't really a similar position, but it was part of a reorganizing where the bishop went out to the queen side and the king came forward to control the middle of the board. We had trouble making bishop d8 work because of the threats along the d file against the d6 pawn. Here, there's no such thing to be concerned about, with white having both the pawn and the knight blocking the rook's view. And Hikaru will be able to go king e7 next move, not to mention some of these bishop out to the side ideas as well.
Great understanding by Hikaru of the position. I think we're breathing a little sigh of relief to see bishop d8 on the board. I see in the chat Blunderbay is asking, any one of you coming to the chess event in Stockholm? Funnily enough, Hammer and I talked about this at the start of the stream. We will both be there, so we'll see you there. I encourage anyone who's in Europe who's maybe not too far from Stockholm to come and check it out. I don't know what to expect myself, but I think it'll be fun. Okay, now the ball is back in Awonder's court. And what's next for him?
Yeah,
I see the computer wants knight e2, but does the computer just want to bring the knight back to c3 or to where?
I don't really understand. E2 doesn't really seem to make sense for the knight right now, because like where is it trying to go moving forward? What Awonder wants to do, he wants to play the move f5. And then he wants to provoke Hikaru into playing e5. And then he might consider doing some maneuvers, retreats, moving back in order to get to the d5 square. Even moving forward, that's a pretty cool move, exploiting the fact that the pawn cannot capture the knight due to the bishop's pin. So f5, No, he does go for the retreat.
I don't understand where this knight wants to go. Or does it just want to open the path for the d pawn?
Maybe he still wants to go f5, I think. So let's say black plays a nothing move. Well, the issue here is that nothing moves
What
don't
about
really
a5?
exist.
Is a5?
Yeah, but then we prevent knight to b4, which may
Ah,
actually be one of the key
ideas.
ideas. But sure, let's do a5. And then f5, sacrificing this pawn in order to, I don't know, somehow get some pressure down here. Yeah, computer's just saying black is winning, and which makes sense considering that black is just getting a free head to capture as many pawns as you can possibly take. Um, I'm kind of stumped, Fiona. Based on the computer suggestions, it would seem that the idea is to push pawn to d4,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
but I don't understand why
So if
that's
we return to
important.
a5, our waiting move, which isn't
Yeah,
really...
I'm gonna go king f8 instead. I think
Okay,
I like getting the king out of this,
okay.
and then d4. I guess we go h6 because we want to trade some pawns and we want to open up for our bishops. G6. Okay. I guess it makes sense that white doesn't want to trade off the pawns that enable this dark squared bishop to get easily into play. But like I would be somewhat scared of this bishop's long-term safety. Yeah, okay. I mean, if we have to trade here and then the knight could potentially get to the, I don't know, Fiona. I don't want to take with the pawn there. I want to take with the bishop. Because when we trade the light squared bishops, then this weakness makes a bit more sense to me. Yeah, I don't really understand why the computer is being positive in White's favor, but it is interesting that Awonder played this quite quickly.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of
clearly
play,
he feels it's obvious to some degree that he wants to push forward.
speaking of playing quickly, at which point do you think we have to be slightly concerned about Hikaru's time?
10 minutes, maybe. Like the queens have been traded off.
Mm.
There's no immediate king danger. I mean, if he feels it's necessary, he can pretty much speed up whenever he wants. So I don't think time is gonna have a huge impact.
And King e7 was a fairly quick move by Hikaru.
Yeah, I don't know why I did King f8. Because his idea of moving the bishop back was pretty clearly to vacate that square for the king, and then the bishop can move over here. Makes sense to me. Pawn to d4 is the suggestion, and it's also the consistent follow up when you move the knight back that you did it because you wanted the pawn to take over that responsibility. But oh, here suddenly black is almost winning. I don't really understand why this. I don't understand why the computer thinks white is better. It doesn't make sense to me. Like black has good control in the center of the board. Black has the two bishops. Black is the only one to have the rook on an open file. I maintain what I said going into the break that I think I would prefer having the black pieces, although I think black's position was a bit more dangerous than I gave it credit for. However, Hikaru has found a very nice plan with the bishop retreat and the king taking over the bishop's position. So, is that a free pawn? Yes, yes, it is.
I do not ask me the things you cannot understand.
I think Hikaru's evaluating pawn takes g5. No, I don't think so. Because here, after takes, then white gets to open up the h file for their rook, and black is left with an isolated pawn on that side. I don't think Hikaru is really giving this much thought. Is my guess.
So let's go back to bishop b6.
Yeah, bishop b6, and then knight forward, and the bishop into the middle. Surely this is going to
We
happen.
like this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Someone's pointing out he's 20 minutes down on the clock. Yeah, but 20 minutes in a position like this is not a big deal at all. I mean, it's more important, if this was move 1 and Hikaru has to make 40 moves, even then, even then it'd probably be fine.
Yeah, and also it very rarely makes sense comparing the player's time with the opponent. It's
Yeah.
more about comparing the player's time with the situation on the board. Wow, he does go for the trade.
Say sorry to stocking philosophy. I mean, who are you to take on a philosopher in Chathammer?
I don't know, but I don't like this move.
Even though it gets the green star?
Yeah. No, I liked activating the bishop. I'm not sure I'm happy with opening up here along the H file. I mean, this is probably good for a draw, but I was starting to get some ambitions to win the game.
What about now, bishop e6? Oh.
Feels fairly likely that a lot of trades will happen soon, right?
Yeah.
This is such a cool move. Engine, bishop g6, takes, check. Wow. I still don't get it, but it
Yeah, we
looks
have to. I
incredible.
don't. So,
I mean, I still don't get it, so I'm curious what's about to happen. E5 was not on the list of things I thought was about to happen.
the computers are so insane.
I still don't get it. Oh,
That's a
boom.
lovely mate, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Very nice. I don't know how likely it is for a human to find it though.
I like how the AI mod just deleted a comment that asked, "What if f takes g5? Is there anything to be concerned about?" And just auto deleted for
I mean,
hate
after
hate
F
comment.
after F takes, I think the main concern is for a wonder, because then he splits up these two pawns, so now these two are working together rather than having this whole pawn mass work as a unit. And also, like, it's fairly likely that we could see some kind of a trade here on the side afterwards, after which Hikaru will just have a free pressure with his rook against the h4 pawn. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me to recapture away from the center of the board. That's it's supposed to be your main instinct to always capture in
towards the center.
toward the middle.
Mm. Can we go back to that line we were just looking at with the mate in the end? Yeah, basically just this line. I was curious, what if black put the king on d8 instead of e8? Fast forward a few moves.
We went here. Okay, that was fairly straightforward, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. But he
Apparently,
didn't have to.
chess doesn't need to be that
No.
tricky.
But there was a way out, right? Where was it?
Yeah, no. Apparently, instead of capturing the bishop, you play pawn to e5. But if you play like this, Fiona, they're gonna throw you out of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean bishop f5, and I'm like, what?
It feels problematic for black still.
Yeah.
But apparently, you can save this.
Oh
Okay,
wow!
let's
I
take a look. He did
wonder.
take with
He
the
did take
f
with the
pawn.
f pawn.
Okay. Well, Hikaru's going to play h6. That's
Looks like the AI mod really doesn't like f takes fxg. There must be something.
Anyway, h6 is what Hikaru is going to play. He will want to remove his lone pawn on the side of the board as quickly as possible. And now, if Awonder takes that pawn, Hikaru is almost winning because he has managed to keep the protection around his king while also getting very easy pressure against a lone white pawn on the edge of the board, as well as chasing the white bishop away from its attacking position. So, Awonder, to justify his play, is going to have to try and create a counterattack. But Hikaru will just move the bishop back to defend. And this looks horrible for white. Fiona?
Yep. I'm here.
Do you agree?
I do. I think that what has happened is that Awonder at some point, maybe with this knight c2 move, I think ever since then, like, I think he played a really great game, and then at some point, just.
I don't know. I feel like it's too early to say he played a really good game.
But until
And
that point, and I mean, from here
but
on
he
out,
just played the standard opening,
yeah, that's
right?
true.
And he
But I
allowed the
mean, what
trade
I'm
of the
trying to say is he
queens.
just lost the thread, and suddenly every move is just like, what's
But in
that?
that case, I would go even further back. Because allowing the trade of
Yeah.
queens is like the number one thing. And we spoke about this at the beginning of the game. How does black secure the safety of their king? And I said queen trade, right? That's like the one of the main things that black tries to achieve in this opening. And then with this knight to e2 move, which to the chess.com system's credit, it actually gets a question mark. I don't always agree with the marks given moves, but here I do agree that I'm not. I think maybe a question mark is too strong, but it was certainly a controversial decision to play this move, allowing Hikaru to put the queens up against one another and solving the major issue that he had to deal with, his king's safety. And now, as the game is progressing into an endgame, and Hikaru makes sure that he trades as many pawns as possible, which is a classic way of increasing the scope and the value of the two bishops. It feels like a big defensive effort is needed from white at this stage.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the most optimistic I've been for Hikaru the entire game. The trend is so much in his favor, and he's away from the board right now. I think Hikaru's gotten more confident himself. I think he is very happy with his position, and I think if you're a Wonder, um, he'll be kicking himself right now.
I think I may have spotted a potential mistake he made. I
Mm-hmm.
think he may have thought he would be able to go pawn to g6 here. And then takes. Yeah, no, apparently this is just bad for white. Because earlier we saw some similar situations to this, but where white had the pawn on f4 so that you could play pawn to f5, so that you could trade off this one, so that the knight could get to the d5 square. The major issue of playing pawn the f pawn takes back on g5, now there's no more pawn to f5,
Mm.
which means there's no more challenging the e6 pawn, which in turn means that this pawn is dominating the knight.
I have to say, out of all the moves, I think knight e2, as you just highlighted, which allowed the queen trade, was not just strange, it was probably just bad. But this one feels so mysterious to me. Um, you had just made the argument that it was so logical, not only stronger, but so logical to take with the h pawn. And I was completely agreeing with you. And yeah, this move has just really caught me by surprise.
And the
Um,
fact that he's thinking now suggests that he doesn't have control. Like he doesn't feel like, yeah, I saw this coming and I know what to do next. The computer is giving a line where white survives. But I'm
yes.
starting to think that basically that's what a wonder needs to have happen right now. That he needs to be extremely accurate just to survive.
Can we see that line?
Yeah, let's do that. So computer's giving rook f1, creating this attack. The bishop defends. The knight tries to get itself involved. A trade happens. And now, one of the crucial moves here, rook to c5. The rook manages to get involved from the queen side over to the opposite flank. And, well, white's pawn is isolated, cannot be defended, and things are looking good. However, knight to oh wow, knight to h6, and then now rook takes g5 is not possible because of knight takes f7. It looks as though the rooks are working together, keeping each other protected, but out of nowhere, it's actually a checkmate in from the side.
This is such a crazy line, Hammer. That's insane.
But that's the saving grace.
Wow. But that's hard to spot. Or
I think so.
let's see that line again. So rook f1 was the first move, huh?
Yeah. That makes sense. That's a
That does
fairly
make
obvious
sense.
one.
Yeah.
So create this attack, bishop protects. Reinforce the attack with the knight, makes sense. Recapture, you have to do. And at this point, the rook comes up, and then you have to start doing tricks to survive.
Yeah, I think that's the question from a distance in your calculation. Once you see rook c5, do you stop there and think, ah, this is bad? Or do you go further?
So a wonder needs to go further in order to realize that he has some tricks of his own to survive that variation. Because right now, the alternatives are just bleak. Let's check this move, knight to g4 as well. Knight to g4, trade. And now if rook to c5, you have to do the same thing as earlier.
So either rook df1 or knight h6, and they lead to the same.
So basically, this is the reason. Like, this is what he needs to find to survive. And even here, Hikaru doesn't have to take on g5. He can go rook f8 instead.
Yeah.
If Hikaru could just get his bishop here into the center of the board, surely this is much, much better for him.
And if white tries to increase the pressure on f7, rook f3.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, okay. So if he figures this out, that he can go for a very straightforward, get as many pieces attacking the f7 square as possible, including, in fact, both of the rooks and the bishop and the knight, then Awonder survives. But if he doesn't find that plan or realize the importance of that plan, then he's in big, big trouble.
So let's find one line for white which doesn't involve doing what we just did.
Well, how about this one, Fiona?
Yeah, looks great for us.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you allow the trade between these two pawns on the g5 square, it becomes very difficult to defend that pawn moving forward. It's just that you get your counterattack just in time. So I would say in many respects, the pawn on h4 is safer than the pawn on g5, because there's no rook coming in from the opposite flank to attack it. But the big difference is that here the white bishop is forced back to defense. There's no counterplay. So even though black doesn't win this pawn in the next 4 moves, which is kind of what we saw in the other variation, it matters less that the pawn is lost in a couple of moves. It matters that the pawn remains a weakness over time, and that white is unable to cook up some counter threats.
Do you think that in a sense Awonder can get to the solution by method of elimination in a sense? Like just by understanding that all the other options are bad and then look in that direction?
Yeah, maybe. It depends on his state of mind. It depends on whether he right now is sitting there thinking, oh, I'm so dumb capturing away from the center. It depends on whether he's able to kind of feel some positivity in his thoughts and be like, oh, this was not a great development in the game for me, but I'm going to make the best of it and start a counterattack. I don't know. This seems very promising for Hikaru to me.
Especially now. I mean, earlier we talked about the time. When we last talked about the time, Awonder had a 20-minute lead on the clock. Now it's down to just 5 minutes. And I think when you are, and we are of course projecting here, but we do both think that Awonder is kind of kicking himself, right? And when you're kicking yourself, you tend to spend a lot more time because even subconsciously, even though you know you shouldn't be doing this, very often you will go back in the game in your mind and think, what should I have done there? And why did I do this? Why did I allow the queen trade? Blah, blah, blah. And all of these thoughts start taking up a lot of your mental bandwidth, and as a result, you just slow down. So I think if a wonder might have to, depending on how this goes, watch the time. And it's easier said, of course, for us as commentators or just sitting on our couch to think, okay, you just have to adjust to the new situation and understand, well, now I'm on the back foot and I need to find some good moves to stay in the game. Where, maybe 10 moves ago, you're thinking, oh my God, I've got a really promising position and I've got all these pawns here, and, maybe I can catch Hikaru somewhere. So you need to readjust to a new situation. And some players are better at doing this than others.
And I guess we don't really know a
Know him,
wonder
and
well
no.
enough
Yeah,
to make that assessment for ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm very curious to see if he can find. Let's go back to that line one more time, because if he finds it, then what happens?
So rook attacks together with the bishop. Hikaru defends. The knight joins the attack. Hikaru makes sure not to lose his pawn on the edge. And then he starts going after a pawn himself. And now knight h6.
Because in the line we looked at, we ended up getting checkmated. So how do we not get checkmated?
Yeah, so are we now saying that Hikaru is the one who has to be careful here?
I'm saying maybe if a wonder finds it. That's why I wanted to come back to this line and see if a wonder finds this, then what?
So computer is giving the line king to d7, but that seems very sad. Just completely abandoning this whole thing and going into an endgame down a pawn. But you're going to win the pawn back because if the pawn pushes forward, you can take the bishop. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, if he does find it, then you're right. Hikaru will need to play some accurate moves.
It's actually an incredibly important moment for this game, because if a wonder finds it, Hikaru will have to find some moves in turn, and I think in that line we saw, there are good chances it will peter out to a draw quite quickly. But if a wonder doesn't find it, then we're very confident about Hikaru's chances. So big moment in the game right now, and a wonder has already invested quite a lot of time into this move, which for him and for his fans is a good sign, right? Because it looks like he understands this is a crucial moment in the game.
Yeah, and I really like that you highlight that because sometimes people feel like, oh, he's spending a lot of time. That's bad, but a lot of very often spending lots of time in a critical position, it can be the best thing ever because you've identified the moment as game changing.
Absolutely. But it's hard. I wonder, we talked about him as a player yesterday, and he's not a player that either of us are too familiar with. He didn't pursue a full-time professional chess player career like others. I mean, I don't know enough, but we know that he at least went to university, was pursuing. Oh, we
Oh,
have a
he
move.
found it. No, he did not find it.
He didn't know. Yeah, that's what
Well,
I.
but it's similar. It's in the same vein, but it's not precisely the move order that we were expecting. Okay, Hikaru plays quickly. Hikaru didn't really have a choice. White was threatening to capture the black pawn, so had to be traded. Awonder naturally gonna recapture, but he
Yeah.
went to the bathroom.
He must have needed because he knew that Hikaru was very light. Well, he had no other move, but he'd been sitting at the board for a while, and sometimes when nature calls, Hammer, you gotta you gotta go.
Yeah.
So let's take a look. He's going to recapture on g5.
And now, yeah, we actually did briefly touch upon this, Fiona, because
Mm-hmm.
now if rook to c5, then we go back to the other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which we figured out was not actually in Hikaru's favor. So the question is, can Hikaru improve on this, exploit the fact that there's no immediate threat right now, and play something other than rook to c5 going after the pawn? And computer is giving bishop b6, so let's investigate. If knight to h6, having these two working together, I was going to say, can we go here? Computer says no.
Did you see, Hammer? He made
No,
his move standing. Like he came back and he took and then sat down.
I have done that a couple of times, I will admit, but it is considered slightly rude.
He made it look so. In general, I also think I'm not a big fan, but somehow it looked so effortlessly that I wonder is I'll let him get away with it. He did it so classily. Bishop e6 played by Hikaru.
Yeah, so no rook c5.
Mm-hmm.
This is making me wonder, what if rook here, then knight up, then trade, then bishop here? What's the difference? So here engine wants knight h6. So we currently have the same kind of position, just with the white rook here and the black bishop here. So moving to the current position in the game, if knight forward, bishop back, rook over, then white is supposed to be fine. But apparently here it's better to go with the rook to protect. Because it is looking very juicy if the black bishop gets itself to this e3 square, Fiona.
So what happens if I play rook d1, rook f1,
I'm guessing I now move the bishop and I've
and
somehow
rook
managed to get the rook across.
and rook f3? My idea is that I A want to double the rooks and B stop you from going to e3.
Apparently rook h7 is a thing. Wait, b4?
Yeah, I mean, all my pieces are just looking at f7, but f7 is,
Yeah, and because we managed to get the rook across, right? So
yeah,
a lot of the situations
yeah.
we've been looking at, the black rook was over here because the variation started with rook comes in here to attack and we had to defend with the bishop.
Yeah, this rook f8 seems to be a crucial move for this game.
The top choice from the engine, and frankly, the only move I believe will keep Awonder in this game is knight to f6. Just trying to trade off the knight for the bishop. And to my big surprise, bishop to c6 is not mentioned. But that has to be the logical move to make. Trying to keep the bishop on the board and then pawn to d4. Like, how is this not better for black, who has two nice bishops on the edge of the board, pointing in toward the white pawns in the center and creating some scary threats.
I do not know the answer to your question.
Wow. I might have an idea because I'm seeing the computer suggest here bishop to g6.
Wow.
And the worst thing is, this is not the first time we see this move.
No.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
And so after takes, the threat of the rook coming in here is so big, and we cannot take the bishop because then, we can take the bishop, but it
Wow.
enables white to get the counterplay they need just in time.
Incredible line.
Yeah, no, Hikaru has a big advantage here.
Yeah.
And Awonder is getting stressed on the clock as well. There's no way, I'll just say that right now. There is no circumstance in which Hikaru is going to allow Awonder to just take that bishop. Allowing white to trade the knight for the bishop will let white get away with a draw here. But Hikaru can just move the bishop away, and the position remains super tense and open, and potential for, I guess, in theory, both players, but primarily I would say that the two bishops and the superior pawn structure and the more centralized king is to be favored.
And I think getting a win here in the second and last classical games, especially with the black pieces, this will be Hikaru's last classical game before the candidate starts, would be a huge confidence boost. So we'll come back. I think, Hammer, that we should probably go on a break now. Otherwise, the time is going to be too low. And we want to be here with you guys when that happens. So we're going to take a quick break now, and we'll see you back very soon for what looks like a promising position for Hikaru right now. And we're back a bit sooner than expected because the game has taken a turn we did not anticipate, Hammer.
No, last thing I said before we took the break was that if knight f6 threatening to take this black bishop, I am confident Hikaru will keep that bishop alive or something to that effect. I said, but he did not. Bishop to c6 was certainly a very interesting attempt to keep the game alive and keep it quite spicy. But Hikaru instead has settled for bishop to e3, targeting the white g5 pawn. The issue with this move is that Awonder immediately takes the bishop, then takes the pawn, and we are now in a position with bishops moving on opposite colors, the black bishop on the dark squares, the white bishop on the light squares. And yeah, it seems very likely that this will end up with a peaceful result. There's not enough imbalance anymore for either player to win this game.
Yeah, it's a pity that just at the moment, I mean, it wasn't much, right? Objectively speaking, but we did feel like it was a lot more pleasant for Hikaru to play, and especially considering the trend of the game, I think it made sense to keep it going. But we'll have to wait until after the game to hear Hikaru's thoughts on why he made that decision. Hikaru is thinking here, do we move the bishop or do we attack the black bishop on f7?
Well, it's kind of cute. The computer is suggesting rook to h2,
Yeah.
which is nice. Sacrificing the bishop, but then having the two rooks work together on the second rank, securing a repetition of moves. Really, the white rook can try to target a black pawn, but it will just result in these black rooks chasing the white king, and the rooks are unable to checkmate the king on their own, but they are able to move back and forth for the draw.
And no, I wasn't saying that Hikaru will join. Most likely he will not join, but he will do his recap. Like yesterday, we were hoping to also listen in to the players as they do their post-mortem. So maybe we'll get some insights in the post-mortem, if not, definitely in the recap. And Hikaru, he did not play rook h2. Instead, he hit that bishop.
Seemingly something Awonder had expected, because he immediately sacrifices his bishop for a pawn, then takes out the black bishop. Hikaru's ready for the counter attack. How serious is this? Awonder quickly gives a check on the black
Yeah.
king.
I think like we're seeing the final moves of this game, no? Because Hikaru just wants to do the same thing, right? Of bringing his works to the second rank.
Yeah, but how do you secure the draw with white?
Oh, with white.
Yeah, well, Hikaru's the one making the scary threats, right? So there is some
Yeah.
responsibility on white to actually kind of just kill the game.
You're right, actually. So if I give another check, are you gonna come up to the F file?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But maybe.
And then you go all the way back, because now if the rook comes in, you can trade off a pair of rooks.
And then, I mean,
That's
the computer says 0-0, but if I were white here, I'd think, I've got an extra pawn. Maybe I could play her for something.
yeah, for sure. If anyone can win here, it's white. And that's why Hikaru cannot do this, right? Because then he cannot avoid the trade of the rooks.
But
So therefore, Hikaru will have to move his king up, and then this
can
this
he hide on c6?
no
And then rook c2.
yeah.
No, but wait, there's no rook c2 because of
No,
rook
but
h1.
This.
This.
That's cute. Not to forget that at some point here we should be concerned about the black king getting checkmated as well. In fact,
Oh my, actually,
the
the
only
saving
saving move.
grace.
Yeah. Rook h1.
Crazy.
Pretty wild. So yeah, but the pace with which Awonder played this Rook g6 move clearly showcases that he has seen the idea of trying to force the king to the f file and then trading off a rook to secure the draw. So yeah, good on him. Another interesting draw.
Do you think, actually, Hammer, that Hikaru could have missed this and that he was thinking he might get some chances in the rook ending? Nah.
No, because worst case here, like if Hikaru retreats here, he also always has to consider that white can just hide in the corner and then put the rook across.
Das ist true.
So this was potentially very good for black when the king was up here. But with the king now on the edge of the board, it's like, yeah, you can surround this guy, but you're going to lose stuff on the opposite flank.
Yeah, no, let's not take all those liberties. I'm starting to get I'm shocked the computer still says 0-0. I think black has to be so careful here already.
Yeah, agreed. So Hikaru's just going to move the king up and down. And we're going to see a threefold repetition. I would say more aggressive opening today than yesterday. And somehow the game kind of feels more peaceful overall. But it has to do with Hikaru was very, very risk-taking, and Awonder was not, by allowing this queen trade, which really gave the classical Sicilian a very different flavor than what is normal.
Yeah, it was a very surprising choice, surprising decision by him, especially considering the way he's played these last couple of games. Allowing the queen trade there felt very uncharacteristic.
But like I said, even though the computer favors white in those positions, it is the normal way of playing as black, what Hikaru did. So I don't agree. Someone in chat said that Hikaru's opening was pretty bad. Hikaru's opening was risky, but it's not bad. It's like creating chances for yourself by going into a very double-edged game.
And I think there's the look at the arbiter, and the handshake and the draw is agreed, and we're immediately gonna listen into the players.
Bishop d7. I suddenly realized that it's rook c4. I do not. I'm sorry. I was wondering why I didn't do this.
I thought maybe you should play b4 there, but
yeah, b4 too. But if I go bishop b7, how are you keeping the pawn stable? So I'm just threatening rook c4 here.
Probably have some bishop f7. Right?
Oh wait, so my rooks are on c8.
No, I mean after if you go rook c4, I have to play bishop f7 there. So.
You just have bishop f7.
I mean, for the time being, you're not threatening anything, but yeah, I guess it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, maybe I
have
can
like rook hf1 there or something like that.
f4. No, but now rook c4.
Rook c4 and then
you knight king d8.
Can I attack something? Bishop f7.
No, I just take
with
my king, and then I go over and take e4 check.
Let's see. Maybe knight g8 check then.
Yeah, knight g8, king d8.
Bishop f7.
Bishop e4. Bishop d4.
Bishop
h2.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I moved, I was like, as soon as I moved, I was wondering why I did this at all, because I was starting to wonder.
No, things started getting out of control for me.
I mean, you have knight h6, which just draws, I think, on the spot instead of knight f6. But but I was expecting knight h6, or no, I was expecting, I think, rook f1 and then knight h6.
So rook f1, rook f1, rook f8, which is I should have just played rook f1 first. There should be a knight h6. But I didn't expect bishop d6 somehow. Just
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear. I mean, you should have been much better. I'm pretty sure. You don't play knight e2, you have to be much better, I
I
think.
don't play knight e2.
Like rook h1, I thought was just very good for white.
Oh, there it didn't seem like I have, like it's weird. Like it seems like my up a couple tempi compared to the usual lines, but I'm not really.
I mean, it's unclear because the bishop on h5 is either really good or really bad in the long term. I'm not sure which. It should be
I mean,
really
I was
good.
always
but
scared if you play like h6 and then castle or something. And then,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
not have
Yeah,
any
yeah.
moves.
Yeah, if I get that in some endgame, then yeah, it's very dangerous for white, of course. I mean, dangerous may be the wrong word, but white shouldn't be playing for the win.
But yeah, I thought if rook e1 I have no threat, right? So you can probably just play like h6 or something.
Ah, you thought I would just ignore h6, but now I was wondering if you could already start going for the e5.
Or e5.
I don't know, maybe it's not working here, but it's somehow no. I can just take with a d pawn and I'm fine. And also h6 f5 though.
Pretty sketch.
But no f5 then I had b4. No, right. Yeah, I wasn't sure because once I got queen c4, I thought I should be okay. I didn't think I should be much worse.
I thought the endgame is still good, but then you played like so many weird, or not weird, but moves I didn't see. Like bishop d was. Okay, bishop d was good, I think. But then.
Yeah, I think bishop d8 is very important because if I castle, I
Yeah,
think
rook
you have rook
g1.
g1 and then king h8. I thought maybe some rook c1 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm
move
sure.
my knight back.
You're still just gonna play the same position with the structure.
Or yeah, also f5 is
Yeah.
possible. But yeah, you can't really change anything. Yeah, bishop d is.
I think it's probably.
Overall, it was pretty precise, everything. Very small plus for black at the end, but
Yeah, with like bishop c6, right? Instead of bishop
but
b3.
again, it was nothing serious.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's. So I should just play h6.
So this bishop e2 was a novelty, yeah?
Oh, I mean, I get like so confused by classical. Like I don't.
Yeah, I mean I was ready for the other moves, and you played bishop e2, and I was
Yeah,
a little
but I
confused.
didn't realize there were so many games played
Yeah.
this time. It was like
Yeah.
one move was like 5,000 games.
I mean it's like queen d2,
3,000
f3,
games.
f4. I mean every move except
I was
bishop
trying
e2.
to find like some random
Yeah.
move that would go.
Bishop
I mean, at least
e2.
the rooks get connected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
bishop
sense.
e2 is a novelty.
But after h6 black is better in that endgame, or it's just equal?
No, it's just
equal.
It's still giving like a little bit of plus, but just somehow it kind of disliked this GF F5. And it was
Yeah,
just
yeah, makes
giving like a
No, it
plus.
makes sense.
It's not a strong engine, but it was giving almost +1 there actually.
Okay.
Oh,
If you just take and go direct F5. I didn't look deeply the lines,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
Evan was
Okay.
pretty
I
big
have a
there.
good version of many lines because I have rook h3 available. I have.
Right.
But somehow you're, I think,
Seems like-
1 or 2 tempo ahead, yeah?
That's what it feels like. Yeah, it feels like white's
Yeah,
ahead.
position.
Because yeah, I guess how does it go? But like I can't move my knight to.
Yeah, I mean basically
Before,
you're
yeah,
it's like your
yeah.
knight and queen are like they're on the wrong squares at the start of this. That's the problem.
But I guess like normally, how does it go? Like I guess. I take on c6 and then I. Yeah, I don't know. I got like so
depends on the order,
confused
yeah.
with the. Yeah, I just got like so confused in general.
Yeah, it's hard to judge. But yeah, okay. F5 makes sense.
But I don't
G5 also to me G5 seems just weird. I mean, it's very hard to play that move with like everything in the center the way it is.
Yeah, b4 is available too.
Yeah.
But I I don't even know like if you ever even played classical in your life, like.
You're too young to remember.
Yeah.
Yes, I did play.
Okay.
No, I played against Bobby. I played against Nigel. I played against some of these guys.
Oh, okay.
Long ago. I mean, already probably.
I was like so.
Probably
Yeah, I was
15
so
plus
confused,
years
like,
ago.
What was
Yeah. No, of course I played it, but not
Uh-huh.
recently. No, I just thought it was going to play and get a game.
Yeah,
It's-
of course.
That was a good one. That was a good game.
Yeah, overall it was a good quality game. There wasn't like
Mhm.
anything like major.
Yeah. I mean, F5. I mean, I guess if you know it's good, you can play it. G5. I mean, G5 is just weird to me somehow. It just feels very weird. Just ignore the center, ignore B4, ignore everything.
Yeah, kind of
I
stop
think
you
it
from
wants to,
casting.
in some
Yeah.
lines maybe it wants to bring the bishop back, you know? because-
Yeah, no, of
Yeah,
course it makes
some
sense.
lines,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
makes- yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense. I just assumed I had something there. I don't know why, but I just figured I had something.
One of the ideas at some point for Balak was suggesting to play maybe b4, knight e2, d5 in some
Yeah,
lines.
that's actually what I was about to say. It was like
Some
G5,
lines, yeah.
B4, knight e2, D5. That's exactly what I was just wondering about right now, whether that's possible.
And then
Maybe
like
some knight
e5, some bishop e5, bishop e2,
Mhm.
some of the lines.
In some lines, yeah, that makes sense. It's very double-edged.
But g5 is like big plus or just normal plus?
Well, it was 0.62.
Okay, so it's not the end of the world.
The biggest plus was F5
F5,
directly
yeah.
after GF.
I guess it's thematic, but I don't know. It feels so comfortable if I don't play F5, like I have no weaknesses.
Yeah, because you go up the E5 square. That's
It gets
the point.
very concrete. At some point, you want to go quickly, like maybe even bishop G4, knight E2, knight F4.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, but yeah, if you don't know, it's kind of hard to do that because if you're wrong, it's going to be positionally very tough to play for white. Well, it makes sense that F5 is good. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, the comment reminds me of when I played the Olympiad in 2018 with Wesley, because Olympiad, I think I was playing the Queen's Gambit Accepted, and Wesley was like, I've never seen you play it before, because he hadn't realized I was playing like 2010 or like long before. So it's just the same sort of thing. Yeah, it's like it's so easy to forget. Like it's been so long. And of course, I never play it online either. So there's that too.
No.
So yeah, it's probably like
Great
it
picture.
never shows up.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you. It's been a really solid game.
No, that was a good game. That was a good one.
Yeah,
That was fun.
Good.
I was trying to think like even what I played. Like I don't think I even had any games.
No, you had some game. I think
I played
F3 somewhere.
F3,
You had something with King B1 or F3. I forgot what it was, but you had like
Oh,
one
uh-huh.
game. But of course not much.
Yeah, that was. I was trying to find like some reasonable. Bishop 2 maybe is interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, if I realize it's fine, I should play H6, of course. But it's hard because either you realize you're completely fine, or you think you're just much worse. Like, there's no in between when you go
Yeah,
on
it's
and
still
on
just a
D6.
pawn, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I figured with F4 and getting E5 that it should be good. But I mean, I do remember like from 20 years ago, like I have seen some position where you take on C3 and the pawn does get to like F4 and E5 and it's still fine. But I mean, there's no reason to go for this if you can help it. It's just suffering.
Yeah,
It's like, well, why bother down a pawn for no reason with nothing to play for? So it's just like very, very unpleasant. But I just know, I mean, some lines, yeah, it's like maybe the pawn's on H2 and it's fine. I don't remember, but I know from when I looked at this like years and years ago. I think it's fine even there, but why do you want to play that? I mean, it's just, I'd rather take the pawn on F6 and just play chess. You know?
Yeah, but then it seems good because I have flexibility with F3 and F4.
Yeah, I think what you did should be right because I mean, fundamentally, if you can get the bishop to H5, that should be good. I mean, generally, like black wants to go H5.
Yeah, I don't even need to put my queen there. Like I like so.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah,
just if you think about it logically, if the bishop should be good on H5, then it should be good the way you got in the game. But of course, to find F5 is not so easy. Obviously, it's quite tricky.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, that was an interesting post-mortem we just saw there. Lots was discussed, and the question we were asking ourselves going into the post-mortem was answered as well. Why did Hikaru in the end not play on? And basically, he said he just played bishop c6 too quickly. He had the wrong, did I understand correctly that he thought Awonder had played what we thought he would play, starting with rook f1?
I mean, my understanding is that Hikaru was so focused on knight h6.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
That he
h6.
forgot about kind of the differences that knight f6 had.
Yeah.
That was my understanding. At the very least, Hikaru critiqued himself for not playing bishop c6.
Yeah. So he did understand the subtleties of the position. I think it was more of what the Germans call a Fingerfehler.
Yeah, or maybe even just rushing.
Yeah. Another valuable lesson.
It's quite a huge difference between allowing the trade and not, right? But if he's because what I found really interesting is that Hikaru said about this f takes g5, which we kind of criticized. Hikaru said, yeah, no, for sure, that's what you should play. So at this point, both players believed white to be better. And Hikaru also gave some of his thoughts on this rook f1 thing that we were analyzing. And Hikaru said he was not going to play rook c5 trying to attack along the 5th rank because he was very concerned about a pawn sacrifice, pawn to e5. So I think both players felt that white still had quite a dangerous initiative, and this caused Hikaru to play his bishop to e3 at that critical juncture quicker than he should have, because he saw, okay, well, this ends in a draw. But he kind of didn't readjust to the new circumstances that here he actually could have played for the win.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, what was interesting is both players seemed fairly. I mean, Hikaru even said it was a good game. So, yeah, maybe I think also the players realized Awonder was the one who had missed the biggest opportunity with this early f5 push. So I think Hikaru will be kicking himself the tiniest bit maybe here. But even in this position, yeah, sure, the game goes on. But it's still more likely to be a draw.
If the computer had given a big black advantage here, then that Hikaru would not like to see that post game. But considering that the computer says this is equal, I think he's going to be like, oh yeah, I probably should have played this bishop c6, but whatever. It didn't really impact the end result.
I also think it was a great, again, a great, prep for the candidates, this rushing slightly, because this is something, if in the candidates a situation occurs where he might be about to make a move pretty much instantly, he might remember this moment and stop himself. So I think, again, today was a good day for what Hikaru is setting out to do with this match. And now the classical portion is over. Someone was asking, will we get 4 games tomorrow? We'll double that. We'll get 8 games tomorrow, 4 rapid games, time control of 15 plus 10. And finally, 4 games of blitz with a time control of 3 plus 2.
Which also means tomorrow is going to be much, much longer than our first 2 days. We've had 4-hour games now, 2 days in a row. But tomorrow, 4 rapid games, 4 blitz games. I mean, it's going to be 5 hours at minimum.
I'm going to disagree.
What?
Yeah. Unless they do big breaks, but I don't see the players wanting to do long breaks. I'm going to say we'll be done in 4.5 hours tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Maybe
I
less.
mean, yeah, no. I said 5 hours. You said 4.5 hours. It's huge.
I want to go under, but you said at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, tomorrow will be fun. We'll see a lot of games. It's just a very different pace, of course. I mean, we'll see 8 times more games than we saw today. So that's something to look forward to. I'm happy to agree it will be a longer day than today. So plenty more chess action in store for you guys. Same place, same time tomorrow. And that's all for us for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
When I see some of these moves that computer suggests after a game that I play, and I just go, wow, that is the beauty for me, because these are not moves that I would ever consider. And when I then see the move, and then I might make a couple of moves to try and understand why, that is the beauty to me. I'm just trying to play as well as I can, and I don't really worry. Like, if I lose a game, it's not the end-all be-all. I'm not naturally talented, but if I don't get something, I try to figure out, why don't I get it? What am I doing wrong? Over and over and over again.